Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm talking about rocks, and what I have here is a real rock, and what I have over here is a rock that I made previously. This was something that I just kind of chopped up and slapped on some dry brushes, and I wasn't real happy with how it came out. It's okay, but it's not the best. So I got to thinking that in my other video where I did sponge painting, somebody left a comment and wanted to know how it would work on making rocks. So I decided to just throw together a short little video and show you how sponge painting on a rock would look. To start, I'm going to grab some scrap XPS foam that I had. This stuff was just laying around from a previous build, so I thought it'd be nice to use it up and make some rocks out of it. So what you're going to need first is a sharp blade. I like to use this old utility knife that I have. It was real cheap. I think it was maybe $1 at Lowe's. But you're just going to take and make just random kind of cuts out of this. And what you want to do is be extremely careful because it is so easy to cut yourself with these blades. I've been using these for quite a while and I haven't cut myself yet with it, and I hope I didn't just jinx myself. And what you want to do is just start cutting it down to size. This is just going to be for scatter terrain, so this isn't a huge piece or anything like that. And I'm just cutting off some of these edges where I had cut it with a hot wire cutter, and it sort of made it very firm, and it gave it a look that I don't want on my rock here. And when you're doing this, there's really no right or wrong way. I mean, I just kind of take random chunks out of it. Using the blade, using my fingernail, whatever you need to do, we're just going to take just random kind of chunks out of it. And again, I just want to stress to please be careful if you're using a blade to make these edges on your rocks. As I said, if you're not comfortable with a blade, you can certainly use your fingernails. You could probably use a pair of pliers to just pinch it and pull it out. That would leave some indents that are just kind of random looking. But yeah, just take your time, be careful, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anybody else. And when I'm doing this, I'm just trying to be very random. I'm not trying to dig big gashes in it because they're just going to be harder to fill in. I just want to make just random little cuts, and as we go on with our sponge painting this time around, you'll see that the highlights will just kind of pick themselves out. Alright, and now once you've chopped up your rocks to where you're happy with them, grab a real rock and just press into them and make some indentations. This is just going to add some natural bumps and divots into the rock. Now you can also use a ball of foil, aluminum foil. That's what I've done previously, where you just take a ball of aluminum foil, roll it up, and just kind of roll it over top of it. But since I had this rock handy, I just decided to use it and just pressing it in there. And this will get rid of some of the unnatural cuts that you've put into it. This will just kind of smooth them out and just add a little bit of more random texture to the rocks. And what's better to get good looking texture on a rock than a real rock. And now we're going to use everybody's favorite, the Mod Podge and black paint. And here I'm showing my infamous bucket of Mod Podge and black paint and Elmer's glue that I've just kind of been recycling, refilling it, and using it now for quite a while. I'm also going to put on a pair of latex gloves here just to keep the hands from getting stained up with the black paint. It just makes things a little easier to clean up. And I'm just using an old brush here and just putting a nice heavy coat on. I don't want it to run too much because if you let it run, it's going to dry and you're going to have these like droplets on the rocks or terrain piece that you paint up with this, if you put it on too heavy, that is. So I'm just putting on like a nice heavy coat, but not enough to where it's running. And of course, you want to make sure to cover everything up. And here, to let them dry a little bit better, I'm putting a toothpick in the very bottom of it, and then I'm putting that in a stand so that it holds up, because if you just slap this down on a piece of paper or cardboard, it's going to dry on there. Now you could just leave the bottom unpainted and come back later, but I'm too impatient for that and thought I could go a little quicker. But here on the bigger piece, you can see again, I'm just putting on a nice heavy coat, not getting too sloppy with it, but you certainly want to cover everything up. Alright, so after they're all dried and ready to go, I'm coming in with some cheap apple barrel paint, and I'm just going to use black and white to mix the two. If you have gray, great. If you have some brown you want to throw in, that would look even better. But for this one, I'm just doing some black and white. I'm just going to mix them as I go with the sponge so that I got some black, some white, and some gray all on the same part of the sponge. And I am just going to start dabbing the rock with this. And I can tell you what, right off the bat, I was pretty happy with how the texture and the colors of the rock were coming out. I definitely think it looks better than dry brushing to me, because you can just kind of keep working it a little bit. You know, if something's looking a little too white, you can just sort of hit it with the black paint a little bit more that's on your sponge. And the more that you dab it with the sponge and the mixture of the paint, it's going to kind of blend itself. I was really happy, and this is a really fast way. You know, I'm not going over it I'm not dabbing it first with gray and then a lighter gray and then finally a white. I'm just kind of using the paint all in one, and this was a super fast way of getting them painted up really quick. And as you can see, I just kind of keep going back over it. I'm just adding a little bit more white where I think it needs brightened up a little bit, usually around the edges. And if I get a little too crazy with the white, then I just kind of go back over it and hit it with a little bit of the black. And it just sort of all blended together, but it left these really cool little specks in there of the different colors. I think next time I'd like to try a little bit of brown in it, and maybe even you could add a touch of green around the edges just to show like maybe the moss is growing on it. I think that would be a cool addition as well. Now, one thing when you make terrain out of foam, it's very light and it's very easy to bump and knock it over. And I kind of wanted these rocks to be able to, like, you could stack them up. And, you know, whenever you're gaming and somebody bumps it with the hand, your miniatures are going to go flying, the rocks are going to go flying everywhere. So I thought it would be kind of cool to add magnets to it. So as you can see here, I'm just tracing around the magnets. I'm just putting them where I think I want them on the rocks, where I'm going to stack them up. But yeah, here I'm just using a pencil and I'm just drawing right around the magnet because I'm going to try to cut the hole in this as close as possible to the diameter of the magnet. Now for cutting the hole this time, I'm going to use a Dremel, and this is a little sandstone grinder on the tip of this. I thought instead of using my utility blade or a X-Acto knife to try to hack out the holes and try to get them semi neat, I was just going to use this Dremel tool, and it actually worked out extremely well. The only thing with this is make sure that you're wearing a dust mask or a respirator, or you do this outside, because it does generate a lot of tiny particles and isn't something that you want to breathe in. So just make sure, you know, you're being safe with this. You don't want to breathe this stuff in. It's certainly no good for you. It didn't melt any of the foam. I mean, if you hold it on one section and really press on it, it probably would melt it, but it more or less just ground it away. And with this, I was able to control it really well and get a very nice, clean circle for putting the magnet down in. It worked out really well, much better than trying to take a knife or an X-Acto and trying to hack away at it. And I'm trying to keep the depth of the hole here just so that when I put the magnet in, it'll stay flush with the edge of the rock here. So, you know, you can try it out, and if you need to, grind a little bit deeper into the rock and get a good fit. Now, one thing, I'm sure I'll probably hear it in the comments, but I probably should have done this before I painted the rocks. That probably would have been the better idea. So if you're watching this video and you're wanting to put magnets in, I would definitely go ahead and fit the magnets in before painting them. I wouldn't glue in the magnets until after I was done painting them, but I would have cut the holes before I painted them. But as with most projects, you learn as you go along and you learn from your mistakes. It's hard, like almost everything I paint or build, I make at least one mistake that hopefully I learn from. You want to make sure to get the polarities correct, or else they're going to repel each other whenever you go to put them together. What I like to do is stick two magnets together and then paint the sides that I'm going to be gluing into the rock. That way there, whenever I go to glue them in, I know for sure that I have the polarities correctly and they're going to attract as I want them. Alright, and now for gluing these in, I like to use this Gorilla Glue. it will dry properly in this foam. If you try to use PVA or a water-based glue, it won't dry correctly. Like the foam just doesn't let the water evaporate. So you want to use something else, maybe liquid nail, Gorilla Glue. You could use super glue, but it's so tiny, or it comes in such tiny containers that I don't usually use it a lot. I tend to use this Gorilla Glue, and I've had good success with it. But you're just gonna put a little bit either on the magnet or into the hole, and then you're just pushing the magnet in there, and you gotta let this stuff dry. Usually it sets up pretty good in a couple of hours. I mean, you can always let it set overnight just to be safe. And the rocks are all finished. I think for the amount of time that I spent making these, they came out really good. They're going to be extremely versatile, especially with the magnets to give them the option to stack up really nicely. These magnets are actually pretty strong. And I mean, for putting miniatures on top of here, they're definitely not going to separate. If somebody bumps them, you know, the whole piece isn't going to just fly apart all over the table. And I actually like putting this little rock underneath the one that's sitting on top. It kind of gives it like a tunnel look to it, or just something to crawl through for the characters. But yeah, I think that this would be a fantastic project to use for a larger terrain piece. I mean, I'd need some more scatter terrain, and I think everybody can use a ton of scatter terrain on the table. Sometimes the more terrain you have, the better it looks. But yeah, as you can see here, they hold really well, and I think that they're going to come in really handy on the table. And the painting was super easy. Using a sponge to paint them gives them a realistic look. It gives it more of a porous type rock. I think next time I would add just a little bit of green here and there on it, just to show a little bit of like maybe moss growing on them. But yeah, I mean, I hope that you'll try this out. As I said, if you don't need rocks, I hope that maybe you can use some of these tips to build a different piece of terrain. Like this would be good for putting walls together, attaching bridges, anything that you can think of. I think that there's a lot of possibilities here. I want to say thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed watching me carve up some foam, make some rocks, and I hope that the sponge painting and the magnets come in handy for you someday. Now my next video is going to be more miniature painting. This was just a nice little break from that, and I have the miniatures all primed up and ready to go, so I hope that you'll come back and watch. And with that, I want to say thanks for watching one more time, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.